So once your buyer has completed their inspection, ideally they're ordering their appraisal right away. The appraisal process and hearing back on the appraisal can take a really long time. The appraisal is the longest single step in the entire transaction. From the time that the buyer orders the appraisal to the time that we get a report can be 3 weeks. It's usually closer to 2, but I've even seen it take longer than 3 weeks. And so it's one of those things we want to make sure to stay on top of, and I'm absolutely following up on it and making sure that it was ordered at that time so that we can keep the transaction moving forward and get everybody where they're going on time. So for the appraisal, you are going to leave just like inspections and showings. No puppies, no pets, no kids, no people in the home. You want to give the appraiser the space to do what they need. If the appraisal is on a conventional loan, it usually doesn't take very long at all. Now, if the appraisal is for a conventional loan, it tends to be a little on the shorter side and a little faster and a little easier. If, however, the appraisal is on a loan that is an FHA loan or a VA loan, it does tend to take a little bit longer because they have a checklist of things that they have to check in addition to room measurements and pictures. Once the appraiser is done, they send a report over to the loan officer, who sends it over to the underwriter. Once the underwriter approves the appraisal, they send it to the buyer. On the sell side, we never get to see the appraisal. Occasionally they'll tell us, especially if it's like right on the head or something because they're being kind. But usually unless it doesn't appraise, we never find out anything more than it appraised and there are or aren't conditions. Now conditions are almost always only for an FHA or a VA loan. If it is a VA or an FHA loan and there are conditions such as your GFCI outlets aren't in the correct places, or there's peeling paint somewhere in your home, or there aren't smoking carbon monoxide detectors, or there's broken glass somewhere, those are things, or there aren't hand railings on the stairs appropriately. Those are all things that the appraiser is going to flag. Those are things that the underwriter will condition, and those are things that you will have to repair before we can close. Once you make those repairs, we then have the appraiser come back out, which the buyer does pay extra for, so it's really important that we try to get it right the first time. Not to mention, having an appraiser come back out is one of the things that can make us late for closing, let alone if they had to come back more than once. I have one transaction right now that an appraiser unfortunately was really tough. I'm not even gonna get into the details, but they were really tough. And actually they came out 4 times for us to be able to close, which I've never seen that before. In fact, honestly, I don't know. And generally they give you conditions. They're usually not so bad because if we know the home is going to be a problem, or we do those things in advance to make sure that we're good to go, most of the time isn't much. If there is anything, there are easy things and you are good to go with one reappraisal. If your realtor does not follow up to find out that the appraisal report has been received and you appraised at value, oftentimes no news is good news. I certainly think it's really important to ease my clients' minds, and so I like to follow up and make sure we get the confirmation that appraisal was good and we are ready to close. And make sure that we get the confirmation that appraisal came back good and that we are ready to move forward. Make sure you check out the video on what happens if a home does not appraise.